Okay, so good evening, everyone. I welcome you all to this session on cryptocurrency and Bitcoin. So today, I, Karthikeya Suri, and my friend Vishwanath Sinha will be taking you on a small journey, an introductory level journey throughout crypto, and we'll be covering the following topics while we are at it. We will start off with basics of cryptography, the hashing algorithm, encryption and decryption. Then we'll move on to fundamentals of SHA-256 hash, the basics of blockchain. Then we will head towards understanding a simple cryptocurrency, the decentralization of Bitcoin, the hows and whys of Bitcoin. Then we have crypto mining and transaction, pros and cons of cryptocurrency, smart contracts, altcoins, and finally we'll wrap up the session with a small question and answer round wherein you'll be free to ask any and all questions you may have regarding the session we just took. So I hope you all enjoy this session. I'll now hand it over to my friend Vishwanath for taking the first part.
Yeah, thank you, Karthike. So, guys, there is a lot of excitement and interest about cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin. So, to really understand what is special about Bitcoins, and we need to understand how it actually works at the technical level. So, as you know, there are banks and the governing bodies to safeguard and validate uh, the known fiat currencies, the currencies which we know. We have banks and various government organizations to validate it. So similarly, cryptocurrencies too must have security measures that prevent people from tampering with the state of the system. So, as the word suggests, cryptocurrencies makes a heavy use of cryptography. Cryptography actually provides a mechanism for securely encoding. So, we can use it to prevent tampering as well as to encode the rules for creation of new units of these currencies into a mathematical protocol. So, in cryptography, we will basically focus on cryptographic hashes and digital signatures, which are the basically two major primitives of cryptocurrencies. Moving ahead, cryptographic hash functions. So these are kind of algorithmic functions which help us to encode a set of data or any sort of message or any data of any length into a particular encoded hash. So what is a hash? Hash is actually a hash is actually a bit of strings which is defined and limited. Like here you can see we are actually encoding a image which has a size of 1.21 MB. So this is an image, and we are using a particular cryptographic hash function which runs on a particular algorithm which is predefined, and it generates a 32 bytes of a hash. So this is the hash value which the third person or the another person gets to see, not that this real value. In real life, you can just have an instance like many companies. What they do is they try to keep the hashes of the passwords of their customers. So storing informations in these kind of hashes makes it very much secure. So for a hash function to be cryptographically secure, there are three basic pillars upon which it relies. It should be collision resistance, it should obey the hiding property, and it should always be puzzle friendliness. So let's see what are they. So first of all, collision resistance. So we are in the job of encoding a particular set of data into a hash function and generating a particular hash of a particular length. Like let us assume for being instance, like we are assuming it to be of hash of 256 bit. So like if we are gonna generate the hash, there are chances that the hash of the two of the inputs might get same and the collision occurs, because till now we cannot say like there is a hash function which is collision resistance completely. There are chances that collision will occur. As you can see here, the input space, so the input space is really large. There are even we can imagine it it to be like infinite source of data which can be encoded into a particular hash of a particular length. So we are encoding the data in a hash of a particular length. So here there are chances, because the output space is limited. We have the infinite input space, but the output space is limited. So there are chances that collision may occur. But when we are saying like there is a infinite input space, so let's think of a simple algorithm to backtrack from that hash. So like if we want to backtrack the particular information encoded using the particular hashing algorithm, so if the hash is of a 256-bit length, so actually in the worst case we have to compute hash function of 2 to the power 256 hashes. Yes, and on an average case, the hash we have to compute the hash of 2 to the power 128 hash functions. So that's of course an astronomically large number. If a computer like what we have calculates 10,000 hashes per second, it would take more than 1 octillion. Yes, 10 to the power 27 years to calculate 2 to the power 128 hashes. You can imagine, or I can simply say this is beyond our imagination, how big the numbers are. So, like for another way of thinking about this is, we can say that if if every computer ever made by humanity was computing since the beginning of this entire universe up to now, the odds that they would have found a collision is still infinitesimally small. So small that it's way less than the odds that the Earth will be destroyed by a giant meteor in the next 2 seconds. And that doesn't happen. So you can imagine how tough it is to get a two hashes to be collide. Now, just look at this video. Here you can see the different observation which we get while we roll a dice. So as we know that there are six observation which we can observe here, and out of this we just took hash of one of that particular input. So this is the particular hash which we get. So as the viewer, if I say like this is the hash of one of the six outputs which we can get when we roll a dice, so this is the hash of one of them. You can't even imagine, or you can't tell like to which input does it belongs. So like we have a small input space of like only six observations. So we can, there are chances like we can backtrack from here, not in one chance, not in two chances. In the worst case, we can backtrack in six chances. So you can assume like if we have a smaller input space, so there are chances like it would be backtracked. So in that case, we focus on the hiding property. So the hiding property asserts that if we are given the output of the hash functions, let us assume we have a hash function like y is equal to the hash of x. So x is the particular data and we are hashing it. So there are no feasible way to figure out what the input x was. If we have a large, or as we seen earlier, like we have an infinite input space. So here we have commitment scheme. So what is actually a commitment? So a commitment is the digital analog of taking a value, sealing it in an envelope, and putting that envelope out on the table where everyone can see. So this is what a commitment in like real sense means. Here we have a particular scheme where we concatenate the message with a random value which is chosen from a spread out space, like from a range of number which are very much spread out. So to commit a message, we actually generate a random 256 bit of a number, what we call as nonce in cryptocurrencies. So this is the nonce which we generate. Then we concatenate the nonce and the message and return the hash of this concatenated value as the commitment. Okay, so this is what we committed. like putting the message into the envelope and putting that envelope on the table. So in order to verify, someone will compute this the same hash of the nonce. So we focus on the words like to verify, someone will compute the same hash of the nonce they were given and concatenate with the message, and they will check whether that's equal to commitment that they have made or not. So as you can see, if the particular commitment is what we made and the message and the nonce which is computed, so with this we will be able to verify whether the committed message is correct or not. Now the third and the a kind of important property which actually spreads the possibility of backtracking a particular hash is puzzle friendliness. So if a cryptographic hash function is puzzle friendliness, then it spreads out the chances of backtracking to utmost impossibility. So just look here. Here we have a value k. So this is a particular value which is being chosen from a very spread out space, like from a space of from a total count of number of 10 to the power 24, which you can assume how big the count will be. So we are choosing a value, random value, and we are concatenating that value with the message and generating the hash of this message, this concatenated message. So for instance, if I say like this part blue corresponds to the k value and the sky is the real message x, so we concatenated both and calculated the hash which comes out to be y. So the third person having this hash cannot backtrack to the real value. If he tries most of the hash functions and computed them, he would get only this message like blue sky. Then he have to go through the this random values and calculate k. So this is what makes it tougher and tougher for the hacker to compute back. Now what we have is SHA-256, secure hashing algorithm 256. So this is the particular algorithm which Bitcoins actually uses to cryptographically secure their informations. So it gets the 256 bits of message, and 512 bits of message is added. Then whole of the message is being compressed again to 256 bit. Then again the same process continues till the n number of times, and at last a padding is given in order to make the like output a multiple of 256. So what we get at the last is a hash of 256 bit. So let's get some demo actually how it works. Yeah, so here you can see we have a space where we can put our data, and the hash of that particular data is being calculated here. So like if I put some message like hi, you have just noticed like the hash of this particular message changed. So like if I put one more I here, again the hash of this message is changed, and this change is very much drastic. You cannot relate between the changes, like I have put just a alphabet and it has changed this drastically. So every message has its unique hash. You can put anything of any length. So like any length of message will be you will get the hash of a particular hash of a particular length, as we just assume of 256 bits. So this is how the SHA-256 works. So moving ahead, now we will get into what blockchain means. So actually, a blockchain in layman language, we can say a blockchain is a chain of blocks. So like every block in a blockchain is being connected to the previous block and the next block, which prevents it to be from being tempered. So like if we talk of a particular block, it has three values, like the data, the hash function of the particular block, and the hash of the previous block. This is the major part which makes it temper evident. So like if we get visualization of this, so this is what a block looks like. So this is the serial number of the block, and this is the nonce. As we discussed, like it is a random value which is chosen from a spread out space. So this particular nonce with this particular message concatenates, and this is the hash which is of this block, which is given to the block. So I want you to just keep in notice, like this hash has 4 zeros in start. Okay, so like I'm not going to temper this block. So like if I put some message here, you can see this screen behind gets red. So this means the block has been tempered. Something has been changed. So and the most significant change is the hash has been changed. Like if someone gets to calculate a nonce that can concatenate with the particular message to just make this block doesn't look tempered. So like if I go on just putting random values of nonce, like let I guess this could be number, no, this, even this doesn't match. So we have a large space to choose out a number. So like let us give to the software, it will mine for us the particular nonce. So here it is. This is the particular nonce which will concatenate with the data to generate a similar looking hash. Actually, it started with 40, but it's not the same hash which it was when here it was blank. So this was the previous condition. I hope this gives a better idea to how a block works. And this is the blockchain. So a blockchain has a genesis block, the first block. It has the hash and the previous hash, because the first block is not linked with any block. So the previous hash is here 0. So we can also see this. Yeah. So this is the blockchain. This is each block is being connected to the another block. So you can see the hash of this block is the previous of this block. Again, the hash of this block is the previous of this block. Now, if a person tries to temper one of the block, like if I'm tempering this with changing the message, so like, hey, not only this block is being tempered, but the rest of the blocks in the blockchain, which has the previous hash of this block, has also been changed and showing as tempered. So the person who is looking after the blockchain gets to know the block is tempered. And now if the attacker tries to mine the particular block and concatenates the value of the nonce, so he not only have to mine this particular block, but also this particular block, and again this particular block also. So you can see how the job is being Herculean to temper a particular block in a blockchain. This is what makes it secure and the backbone of cryptocurrencies. Yeah. So the second primitive which we have discussed of cryptographic hash functions like is a digital signatures, which is the vital part in cryptocurrency. So a digital signature is an analog to the practical signature which we usually do with a pen and a paper. So in when we sign a particular document, we want our signature to be unique, and only we can able to make that signature, but the third person can verify whether it is valid, like correct signature of mine only or not. And the second most important part is like we want our signature to be tied to a particular document, so we just get the guarantee of that particular document and being signed by us. Okay, so let's see how digital signature works. So before digital signatures, actually a person has to generate like two keys, a private key and a public key. So a private key is the key which is with the person who is supposed to sign, and the public key is being shared with a different the third person to whom we are going to commit the signature. So we can generate our own private key, but choosing a random value would be better, as this provide more security. So like this is the private key which we have chosen, and this is the hash value which is the public key. Yeah. So how we make a signature? So this is the particular message, like I pay Ram 10 rupees. So this is a particular message to which I want my signature to be embedded. So this is the message. This is my private key, as you can see here. And now I will sign this message. So what we get is the hash of the our signed message. Yeah. So this will be shared with the third person with our public key. So the third person who wants to verify whether the signature is valid or not. So he gets the message. He has the public key which we shared and the hash of the signed message. So he will verify, and you can see it turns green, which shows like this is correct. So like if in between a person try to temper it, like I pay ram 100 rupees, and at that time the third person is gonna verify this, it won't show correct, because this has uh, indicates to the particular message which to whom we have tied our signature. Okay. So let's back. Okay, so here is what I mentioned, the basic analogies to a digital signature. So this is the same what we looked here. Like Alice is sending a message, "Hello, Bob." So she's signing the message with her private key, and this is the kind of hash which is generated. Alice with the public key. This is Alice public key, and Bob with that public key verifies the same message, and he is able to read that. Yeah. So this is the scheme which I was talking about. So we generate the keys, a pair of keys, like a secret key, which we call the private key, and the second one is the public key. So we sign the particular message with our secret key, and the third person verifies using the public key, the message, and this SIG commit. Okay. So now here we have a particular analogy where a attacker tries to force the signature. So this is a challenger. He has the secret key, and he makes the signature on the particular message of what he wants, and the attackers try to falsify the same signature. So the attacker has the public key, and attacker tries to send a few messages to challenger to have it signed on that particular message. So the challenger signs the message with his secret key, which is with him only. So the attackers observes the signs which he get from the challenger, and at last, when he's confident that he can force the signature, he puts the signatures in a particular message M, capital M, which he wants to be signed by the challenger. Okay. So now the challenger can verify whether the signature which is being sent by the attacker is correct or not. So he runs the verify commit, where he uses the public key, the message, and the SIG commit. So if this verify commit shows true, then the attackers win, and he has actually forged the signature. But in practical sense, forging signature is just impossible, because when the SIG commit runs, the attacker doesn't have the secret key. So without the secret key, the particular message will show some different kind of hash value that won't be verified here. Okay. So this makes just impossible for any other person to forge your signature. Yeah. So when we have the basic knowledge of how the cryptocurrencies are secured, let's get into the few of the simple cryptocurrencies where we'll get how does it works. Like first of all, we have a Goofy coin. So this is a coin where Goofy is the person who can only create the coins and owns a coin. He can transfer the generated coins to a person, and that person can even transfer that coin to another person by particularly signing it and validating it. So here you can see the particular ledger where a Goofy actually creates a coin with a unique coin ID. So every coin will be created with a unique coin ID. The second part in the ledger where Goofy signs a particular transaction where he pays a certain amount to Alice. Now this block has the hash of this previous block, and similarly the third block where Alice is signing a particular transaction where she pays to Bob the same amount has the hash of the previous block. So each of the blocks are being linked in a blockchain, and they are tamper evident. So no one can tamper it like afterwards. But the main problem in this kind of basic coins are like the double spending attack. So just have a situation where Goofy pays the coin to Alice by signing and validating it, but when Alice pays the same coin to Bob, she doesn't mention that block in the blockchain. So say she's trying to fool Bob. So she commits a message to pay Bob, but she doesn't put that in the blockchain, and again makes a transaction where she pays the same coin which she signed to pay Bob, but she pays to Chuck. And now see, you can see that this second block has the hash value of this block is being transferred to these two blocks. So this is a kind of double spend where there are no authorities or any consensus to look for it. Okay, so this is the major problem with Goofy coin. So let's now see how Scrooge coin comes up with this. So in Scrooge coin, the Scrooge takes care of the valid coins. It prevents a double spend. Okay, and Scrooge, like similar to Goofy coin, Scrooge has the authority to like create new coins, and each of the transaction is validly signed. So here you can see Scrooge maintains a particular blockchain which has the hash of the previous transactions, and each of the block has a particular transaction ID, and the transaction data is mentioned there. So this is the append only ledger which can only be appended by Scrooge. So he has the power and authority to maintain it. So here you can see how coins are created in Scrooge coin. Like Scrooge creates the coin. So each coin is here serially numbered, and each of the coin has a particular value which is created and transferred to a particular recipient. So like when the coins are being paid, so what happens is the same amount of coins are destroyed, and the same value of coins are being generated and transferred to a particular recipient, and all this is being transferred to this ledger by Scrooge, and he only signs the ledger and maintains it. So what's the major problem is here, like we can avoid the double spend because Scrooge is maintaining the ledger and he is putting each of the transaction sincerely. But what happens here is Scrooge has the ultimate authority. So like if he wants to betray the customers which or the person who are having the Scrooge coin, or like if he gets bored of the system and stops maintaining the ledger, then the coins with the other person, they will be unspendable because they cannot give the coins to others, because neither they can create coins nor they have the power to append the ledger. So this is where the term centralization comes. So there is always a debate between centralization and decentralization. So basically, bitcoins and the cryptocurrencies tend to be decentralized and maintain a peer-to-peer network. In nowadays, also we have the internet and the email providing services as the decentralized service, but with the incoming of few of the companies being maintaining and providing the email services, that too has been centralized. The kind of social media we are using and the various chat apps, like they all tend to provide a peer-to-peer network, but they are actually centralized. Okay, so let's see how bitcoins are actually decentralized. So it is a person-to-person, a peer-to-peer network where each of the nodes in the globe have the same kind of blockchain. So whenever a new block of transaction is being broadcasted, so this is being broadcasted to every node, and every node check where the block of the transaction is valid or not, and if that is valid, they tend to add to the transaction to the previous ledger. So this is what the consensus we talk about. So like Bitcoin's consensus algorithm follows as like each of the new transactions are broadcasted to all of the nodes. Each nodes collect new transaction into the block, and in each round of random nodes get broadcast to its block. Okay, so each node tries to validate whether the signature is true and the coin which is being transacted is unspent or not. So the nodes express their acceptance of the block by including it hashed in the next block which they create. Okay, so this is how the nodes over the globe works as a peer-to-peer network, providing the decentralization to bitcoins and the cryptocurrencies. So let's assume like Alice is here. She is trying to pay some bitcoins or a particular cryptocurrency to Bob. So what she does is she actually broadcasts the particular transaction. So each of the nodes on the globe gets to know that a particular transaction where Alice is trying to pay Bob is there, and each of them will validate. And if the transaction is uh, validated, it will be added to the ledger. So here also the problem arises of double spending. So like when Alice pays to Bob, so let's assume like Bob is like software owner and his offers to download his software only when he is paid. So here a block is added where Alice transacts to Bob, and this is being broadcasted. So actually in real life situation, there are many issues like network issue and many reasons, so that this kind of transaction are being delayed. So Alice is trying to make use of this issues. So what she does, she simultaneously makes a transaction to herself on her address. So like what the consensus follows is each node will add the most recent transaction which they heard of, and they will maintain and add the particular transaction into the longest ledger which they have. So they have to actually maintain the longest ledger and add most the first of the transaction which they heard of. So like if due to some reasons both of these transactions came to a particular block at the same time, and these both of them are valid because Alice is paying to Bob and here Alice is paying to herself, both are signed. So it depends which of the block will come to the first to the and becomes the longest ledger. So if a block like Alice tries to bribe some of the nodes and make her block to be in the longest ledger, so she will download the software and will do this. So actually what is she is doing, she betraying Bob by downloading the software and even not paying her. So this block which not be included in the longest ledger, and this will be the orphan block. Now just see from the view of Bob the seller. So what the Bob will do, he will wait for the confirmation before allowing Alice to download the particular software. So if the Bob follows this, so he will be confirmed that his transaction is going to be in the longest ledger. Okay, so in bitcoins it is like assume to wait for at least 6 confirmation to be confirmed that your transaction is going to be in the longest ledger. Okay, so here we have like why the each of the nodes and the block, why we suppose them to act honestly. They are maintaining the ledger, then but why we suppose like they are maintaining that in a honest way. So what bitcoins provide here is incentives and the proof of work. Like each of the block owner and the is being provided with two kind of incentives which we have. The first one is the block reward. So what is a block reward? So each of the node which is able to create a particular block by mining it gets a particular reward from the bit as bitcoins only. So the node which is able to create a block gets the opportunity to transact a particular amount of bitcoins to his address. So you see, this is a kind of very a tricky part which Bitcoin does is like if the person who creates a block wants the transaction, the reward amount to be transacted into his address, he has to maintain a ledger where each node maintains honestly the ledgers and makes it to the longest one. So before making a node for creating a block, he has to manage maintain a particular ledger of nodes where each node is honest, and they are maintaining the longest ledger with the consensus which bitcoins follow. So this is what the reward they get. And the second one is the transaction fees. So the transaction fee is actually like a cut which each of the nodes demands, or even we can say that they deserve to, because they provide a better service to the person. Okay, so this is what the transaction fee, each of the nodes which they get from the transaction. Yeah. So now this is a graph which shows, like, there is a fact, the amount of block reward which is being rewarded to a node when it is being converted to a block. So in 2009 it was like 50 bitcoins were being awarded, but the algorithm is something like it will be decreased after every 2,10,000 of the blocks are being created. So after every 2,10,000 blocks are created, the block reward will consecutively decrease, as you can see, from 50 bitcoins to 25 bitcoins. In 2016 it's come to 12.5 bitcoins, and now as you can see it is around 6.25 bitcoins only. So one day this is going to be to the value of zero. So this is how the geometric series goes up. So it is assumed like after 120 years from now, like in 2140, block reward will be just over. No block rewards will be given, and at that time, if we compute this geometric series, around 21 million bitcoins will be there. Okay, so as it is mentioned here, 21 millions of the bitcoin will be there. So this is what, where the transaction fee will come into the ad. So after the block reward will be just zero, then the transaction fee is the obvious reward which each of the nodes deserve to provide the particular service. So this is what we are going to know, how the bitcoins are being created and how the rewards are being provided just act honestly. So I end up here, and I would like to hand over this to my friend Karthike.
Okay, thank you, Vishwanath,
Yeah.
for all this.
So
And I hope all of you are still with us and we are all still connected. So we'll be moving on to the next part of our session. And with that, I'll start presenting my screen. So we have already discussed the basics of cryptography, the hashing functions, encryption, decryption. Now we'll be moving on to how Bitcoin essentially works. So our normal day-to-day transactions use fiat currencies. Basically, the Indian rupee, the US dollar, the Australian dollar, the Canadian dollar, these are all fiat currencies which are controlled and governed by the specific governments and the people of those countries. As mentioned earlier, Bitcoin works through a decentralized ledger. This implies that its regulation and distribution aren't in control of any singular body, any singular government, entity, or an institution. So our traditional currencies undergo something called central payment processing. As you can see on the screen, on left side, we have our traditional currency transaction. So when we are making any sort of payment using our credit cards or debit card, the payment is processed through the central institution whose infrastructure we are using. So we have Visa debit card, credit cards, we have MasterCards. So all these are institutions that do the processing work for a transaction to take place. Bitcoin, on the other hand, are processed through a distributed network of computers, wherein the transactions are tracked using the amount and the Bitcoin wallet addresses of the sender and receiver, as you can see on the screen. So once the transaction is done, here we can see the senders are sending some amount of Bitcoin to the receiver, and they are identified only through their Bitcoin wallet addresses. These are further updated on the ledgers, and these are updated only with their wallet addresses and the amount that has been sent. Now, these ledgers are updated up to hundreds of times each and every single day. And Each and every single transaction that takes place here is protected. The transactions that take place are encrypted with something called the public key cryptography, which we did earlier. So each and every single transaction uses public key cryptography, and the updates help to ensure that all members have correct and updated variants of the ledger, making it impossible for counterfeiting or tampering to occur. Now, this is where Bitcoin miners come into play. Since the transactions are being made, they need to be verified. And the verification process is done by Bitcoin miners. So, who are these Bitcoin miners? Bitcoin miners are computer and other processing devices that people like you and I connect to this incredibly large network. They make use of mining softwares like the ones that you see on the screen right here. So how these mining softwares work is they work by grouping transactions into blocks, which are the fundamentals behind blockchain. And before processing, these blocks are checked, and hence they are only accepted when the hashes match up across the network. Now, for those of you wondering, what's the benefit of this to the Bitcoin miners? Are they doing it for completely altruistic reasons? Is there any specific reason like the giving back to the community? Is it charity work? What is the reason? So as it turns out, once a computer or any device successfully processes and checks a block, it gets added to the pre-existing blockchain and out pops the reward, which is Bitcoin. The newly generated Bitcoin is for the miners to keep and goes into the miner's wallet. In essence, your computer is essentially creating money for you out of thin air. So that must mean Bitcoin for the win, right? Before we move on to the next topic, I'd like to have a look at this small slide here, wherein we have the Bitcoin transaction cycle, which sums up all we have done till now. So we have the opening of the Bitcoin wallet, we have the addresses, the amounts and fees, the sending, the transaction propagation, the mining, the hash cracking, the node verification, the confirmation, and the payment processing till the end. We will also be covering some of these in depth later on. So now we have our next topic, which is Bitcoin for the win. Why not use Bitcoin for everything, right? Since it is so safe, we are buying groceries. Why not use Bitcoin for payment for groceries? Why not get a petrol using Bitcoin? Why not do everything using Bitcoin, right? So we have already cleared the air about why people want to mine Bitcoin. But what about the people who want to transact with it? Quite a lot of people do not trust the modern banking system that has been set in place. They have their reservations about where the money goes once it has been deposited into the bank. Having something decentralized, which is not under direct control of any singular entity or an institution, gives them a feeling of safety. You can add to this the partial anonymity and protection layers that cryptocurrencies give, making it an even more lucrative offer. The only thing that associates you to the Bitcoin in your possession is the encryption key. So as you see on the screen right here, we only have the wallet addresses mentioned here and the amount that has been transacted. So this goes to show that every transaction that takes place is not directly identified to you. Instead, it is identified to the Bitcoin address and the encryption key that is in your possession. Many others like to think of Bitcoin as an investment, but this is some place where you should tread very carefully. Bitcoin as an intangible asset does not have any central agency or any sort of institution governing or regulating it. So there is no guarantee of its value. Its value lasts as long as people are interested in it and people have faith in it. It doesn't have even a flimsy guarantee. It's because of this very reason we see a very high volatility in Bitcoin prices. But there's also a catch. Unlike normal fiat currencies, which can be brought into circulation according to the needs and which also push the inflation rates, Bitcoins are finite. So as has been mentioned in the session previously, the system has been designed such that by the year 2140, all 21 million Bitcoins would have been completely mined. Once all the Bitcoins come into circulation, it is predicted that the value of Bitcoin would stabilize and the volatility would decrease. So moving on, as you can see on the screen, we have a wallet and we have two keys associated with the wallet. So we are moving on to the transaction mechanism of a Bitcoin. Bitcoins are kept very safe thanks to cryptography. Specifically, they remain safe and secure because of the two keys, which we discussed before. These keys work as mathematical guarantees about the transaction or the message encoded. So when someone creates an account on the Bitcoin network, which is known as a wallet, there are two unique keys associated with it. As you can see on the screen, there is a public key and a private key. Here, the private key can be used to mark some data, and all this process is known as signing. And later, the others on network can use the public key to verify the signature. For instance, if I take any message and sign it, then only I am the one having access to it. Then I take the message and send it on to the Bitcoin network or the blockchain network. Here, anyone can make use of the public key to make sure that this message has been signed by me and they have received it unaltered. After this happens, the ledgers will simultaneously update the message or the transaction. So you can see here, these are various blocks that have been updated with the same transactions in different orders. Transactions can occur simultaneously throughout the world, but due to some network delays or some issues, the order in which the transactions are consolidated into a block, that order might change. And here is where we have the consensus algorithm into work. Now, before the transaction is fully complete, the Bitcoin network and your wallet will verify the block of your previous transactions to ensure that they are consistent with what is shown to you. So, as we discussed, this is an attempt to tackle the double spend attempt. This would ensure an accurate track of the Bitcoins you have in your wallet. But here comes a new problem. Since the ledger copies are being maintained across the globe, network delays would mean that the transaction history doesn't occur in the same order it's taking place. This would cause a bunch of people to have a bunch of slightly different blocks for verification, right? So how do we solve this problem? Turns out this is done by actually solving mathematical problems. And with this, we loop back to the addition of Bitcoin miners into the transaction cycle. Hence, we have come full circle associating the mechanism of transactions and the involvement of Bitcoin miners in said transactions. So now we move on to the pros and cons of Bitcoins, stonks or not stonks. So crypto in itself has become fairly common now. As you can see on screens, there are countries wherein the share of crypto being used for daily transaction is extremely high, ranging all the way from 4% in Japan to 32% in Nigeria. And cryptocurrency in itself has had many legalities sorted out. So in India also, up until 2020, cryptocurrency was illegal, but now it has been legalized. But still, there are many debatable points when it comes to the use of crypto. So if you all have had any conversation regarding cryptocurrency, you would have certainly come across some of these points. Now, due to the time constraints, these are only some of the most crucial points that I've listed here, but they go much, much deeper than this. Starting off with pros, we have unparalleled transparency. So because of no involvement of any third party intermediary or any form of government or institution to control this, something like this which is happening across the world and being simultaneously updated is completely transparent and is for the people to check. It is instant and 24 and has 24-hour accessibility. The Bitcoin network, the blockchain network is always online. It is completely automated, and at any given time, some part of the world would always be online. Hence, that ensures the complete system remains autonomous and the interruptions do not occur. There is inflation protection. So, Bitcoin Act does act as a hedge against inflations. How this works is Bitcoin in itself is very finite. Unlike normal currency, more and more of it cannot be brought into circulation, pushing up the inflation prices. Instead, due to a finite amount of this and the finite amount that can be mined at any particular point, the number that will come into circulation will always be at par with the inflation rates going on. There is no third party involved and it is decentralized. We have been talking about this throughout the session. Thanks to blockchain and decentralization, the intermediaries are eliminated, and this works with a node-to-node or peer-to-peer network system. Finally, we have anonymity. So I'll be coming back to this anonymity part later on, since you can see this is covered in both pros and cons, because this in itself has both the aspects. On the con side, we have the difficulty to comprehend. If any of you crypto enthusiasts have ever had any form of conversation with your family members about investment in cryptocurrency, you must have always been faced with this one token statement that you do not know anything about crypto, you do not know anything about blockchain. And while the fact remains, Bitcoin in itself is pretty difficult to comprehend, otherwise we won't be having this session now, would we? With adequate knowledge, it can be simplified. There are challenges of market fluctuations. So because of the rapid increase and number of people being involved, the rapid changes in supply and demand cause an increase in volatility and hence an increase in the market fluctuations. So that's why the prices keep flickering for Bitcoin. There is no security in case of loss. Due to any central government or any agency governing this or regulating this, you cannot hold anyone accountable in case a fraud or a scam is committed. That is why Bitcoin cryptocurrencies, these are some of the most popular and some of the most widely used methods of committing frauds and scams. Then we have extremely high environmental cost. So for those of you who have been keeping up with the news, you might have heard of this certain someone called Elon Musk, who recently became a very big booster and an endorser of cryptocurrency. On the left side, you can see Tesla, Elon Musk endorsing the Bitcoin and saying that you can now make purchases using Bitcoin, and that Tesla is ready to use Bitcoin as its official mode of transaction. But later on, this was counteracted by another statement wherein Elon mentioned that Bitcoin has a very, very high environmental toll, and because of that, cryptocurrency is not a very good idea. On some levels, it might be, and it has a promising future, but it does have its disadvantages. So where do these disadvantages come from? Well, as you mentioned, there is a very difficult algorithm that needs to be cracked. The hashes are very difficult and you require immense computational ability for this. That immense computational ability translates directly into increased use of electricity, increased generation of heat, and in turn increased use of cooling solutions, which all impact the environment in some or the other way. Now this brings us to a final point, that is anonymity. How is it a disadvantage and an advantage? So if you're planning to make any transaction at some place which you might consider a little shady or a little unsafe, and where you might not want your identity to be exposed, you can use a Bitcoin wallets to make those transactions. Since the wallets do not identify directly to you, they identify only to the wallet address associated. Now here's where the problem comes in. Due to this anonymity, the people who commit these scams, the people who commit these frauds, they cannot be traced back very easily to their origin. They can hypothetically create a new Bitcoin address for each and every single transaction, and it is a very resource and time intensive process to catch them. So this serves as both an advantage and a disadvantage. Moving on, we have smart contracts. So we have all heard of traditional contracts, but there is something new in the market by the name of smart contracts. What are these? So smart contract is a term that was coined by Nick Szabo in 1997, and this was long before the idea of Bitcoin even existed. The basic ideology was to create a decentralized or a distributed ledger wherein the contracts can be stored and are accessible by all. So in a way, smart contracts are like physical contracts that we have seen everywhere. But unlike our typical paper contracts, smart contracts are programs that are stored within the blockchain network. An easier way to understand smart contracts would be through an example. I'm sure we are all familiar with the crowdfunding sites and sources by the name of GoFundMe and Kickstarter. So here, all these crowdfunding sites are intermediaries that make sure that the terms of the The terms of the purchase, the terms of the funding are held up. The money spent by people investing in those projects reaches the creator, and if somehow the project manages to fail or does not reach the goal, the money is refunded back to the consumers. But before even this happens, the consumers and the creators have to put their faith in these crowdfunding sites that they will deliver on what they said and what they promised. With smart contracts, we can build a similar system which doesn't require a third party or an intermediary, like a crowdfunding platform in this particular example. So in case of smart contracts, we can program them in such a way. As you see on the screen, this is a small illustration showing the capabilities and showing the advantages. We will be going over this further on in the session. So now you see on the screen, in cases of smart contracts, we can program them to receive and hold the funds until the particular goal is reached. This way, the supporters can transfer the money to the smart contract, like this happened on the screen. And if the project fulfills its goal, the money is automatically forwarded to the creators. If somehow the creators do not manage to reach the goal, the money is refunded back to the supporters. Since these exist within the blockchain, everything here is distributed. This way, no singular person or an organization can control the money. In this case, for crowdfunding purposes, neither the supporters nor the creator can go and push for funding to be received earlier or for the funding to be refunded once the goal has been reached, hence ensuring that the terms of the contract are held up. And thanks to the blockchain technology, smart contracts inherit some very interesting properties, namely immutability and distributability. Immutability states that once a contract has been created, no one can go behind your back to change the code or edit the terms of contract, hence changing the legality of it. And being based on a decentralized ledger, it is distributed amongst everyone on the network. If a singular entity tries to force or take control of the contract, it will be verified throughout the network and will be cross-validated before any further step can be taken, hence making it impossible to be tampered with. Moving on, we have Ethereum-based smart contracts. Some of you must be knowing Ethereum as an alternate currency that has come up, but not all currencies came up as a way of emulating Bitcoin. Quite a lot of these were created with different purposes in mind and have been going in a direction wherein they're trying to overcome the flaws that have been presented by Bitcoin and offer their own advantages. One such thing is by the name of Ethereum smart contracts. So these smart contracts are coded in Solidity, which was created specifically for this purpose. Since Ethereum also operates on blockchain, smart contracts have the same features as we discussed above. So as you can see on the screen, here in the blockchain supports Ethereum, which in turn supports the smart contracts. This gives them immutability and also decentralization. So this means once deployed, it cannot be modified, but this does create certain risks, which we will talk about. So why should we choose smart contracts? What are the benefits of smart contracts over traditional paper contracts? Surely it must be something that goes beyond just the environmental concern, right? On left side, we have the pros, and on the right side, we have cons, which have been briefly mentioned. Now, these are all pretty self-explanatory, but I will still be going over them in a brief manner. First point we have is the high degree of trust. Since there is no intermediary and only the people involved in the transaction are the people involved here, there is a higher degree of trust. They do not have to invest their trust in a third party. There is increased accuracy and manual error elimination. You do not have to rely on any singular person to write or frame a contract, and you can always avoid the legalities and the formalities which are associated with the formal contract, therefore eliminating manual error. Encryption and distribution among nodes guarantee immutability. As discussed, thanks to blockchain and thanks to decentralization, there is immutability, meaning no one can change it once the contract has been deployed. It is almost completely automated since it relies on the blockchain network. There is no reliance on broker, lawyers, or any other form of intermediary, thanks to decentralization with blockchain and Ethereum in itself working for these blockchains and smart contracts. It is much more economical and avoids hidden costs. So, while framing something as complicated and as technologically advanced as a smart contract, everything is upfront. There is no third party intervening here, so everything is done upfront with full transparency, and hence it helps avoid any hidden costs which might have been shrouded in complex phrases in traditional contracts. You have transparency and fraud protection. Mind you, this only works if there is mutual trust within the people involved in the contracts. On the con side, we have ultimately the code is written by people and they can sometimes commit mistakes. A very prominent example of this is DAO. So DAO was an organization that was working towards autonomous operations using Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. And due to a certain exploit they left out in the coding process, in the programming process, the exploit was later used by hackers to embezzle this organization of roughly $60 million worth of cryptocurrencies. So that's a lot, even by the standards of 2016. There is high maintenance in terms of engineering expertise required to set up the contract, since you can't have any normal person who just claims to know programming do this. You require extremely qualified and knowledgeable people doing something like this, since each and every single step matters here. You require highly qualified and experienced coders to make fail-proof contracts, and this needs to be done so that it works within the existing set of technologies. It shouldn't be such that the technology being used here is so advanced that the institution which is using it doesn't even have the knowledge or the experience required for it. Finally, we come to our fifth point, that is fourth point, that is it is not regulated by any government authority. So in itself, it is not classified as a security or a commodity, and no government claims to regulate it or give any assurance for it. Therefore, you cannot hold any institution or government accountable if anything happens in these. However, with an increase in the usage of technology and the technological advancements being made, this might change very, very soon. Now we are introduced to altcoins. So on your screen, you see plenty of alternate coins that have come up after Bitcoin originated. And these are all coins that came up not only as a replacement for Bitcoin, but they also came to overcome the fallacies that Bitcoin might have had. But what are these altcoins? Altcoins are alternative cryptocurrencies that were launched after Bitcoin's success. They generally project themselves as a better replacement for Bitcoin. Since Bitcoin was the first peer-to-peer currency to emerge, it has paved way for many more to follow. Most altcoins are trying to target any perceived drawbacks that Bitcoin has and come up with more competitive advantages in newer versions and updates. Many alternate coins are built on the basic peer-to-peer structure that has been provided by Bitcoin. Therefore, most alternative coins are peer-to-peer, and they require a process of mining by which the users involved here can solve difficult problems, track blocks, and provide secure and inexpensive ways of carrying out web-based transactions. So right here you see a slide, an illustration showing you how cryptocurrency is being used nowadays, with each and every single currency showing its usage and the market cap of it, the supply of it being used. This is all that we have covered till now. So this acts to sum up what we have done till now. Moving on, the why behind popular altcoins. So till now we have covered the how and why behind Bitcoin, but we are yet to cover the why behind popular altcoins. Since I mentioned these were created with different motives. Number one, we have Ethereum. So the goal of Ethereum was to create a decentralized suite of financial products that anyone in the world can freely access, regardless of their nationality, ethnicity, or faith. According to Ethereum, it can be used to codify, decentralize, secure, and trade just about anything. Now, in 2021, Ethereum does plan to change its consensus algorithm from proof of work to proof of stake. This move will allow Ethereum's network to run itself with far less energy and improve transaction speed. Next up, we have Litecoin, symbolized by LTC. Litecoin is based on an open source global payment network, which is again not controlled by any central authority, just like every cryptocurrency out there. And it uses script as a proof of work, which can be decoded with the help of a consumer grade CPU, something which cannot be easily achieved nowadays with Bitcoin. Although Litecoin is like Bitcoin in many ways, it has a much faster block generation rate and hence offers a faster transaction confirmation time. For those of you who might be knowing, Bitcoin has a 10-minute block generation rate, which is an average block generation rate, and it can process roughly 7 transactions per second. So Litecoin manages to overcome these problems by giving it a faster block generation rate and a faster transaction confirmation rate. Third, we have Cardano, symbolized by ADA. Cardano is an Ouroboros proof of stake cryptocurrency that was created with a research based approach by many fields involved, such as engineers, mathematicians, and cryptography experts. It has also been infamously dubbed the Ethereum killer, as its blockchain is said to be capable of much more than Ethereum has achieved till now. Here's a fun fact for you people. Cardano was co-founded by one of the people who were initially working on the project of Ethereum as well. When he saw that Ethereum isn't going in the direction that he had envisioned it would, he dropped this program and he started off with a newer currency by the name of Cardano. But it is still in its beta stages right now. It is still in its developmental stages. While it has beaten Ethereum to its proof of stake consensus model, it does have a very long way to go in terms of decentralized financial applications. Cardano recently released a new statement saying that by the end of September, they would have fully adopted the proof of stake consensus algorithm for their transactions. Cardano aims to be the world's first financial operating system by establishing a decentralized financial product suite similar to Ethereum but better. They can also provide chain interoperability. They can provide voter fraud detection. They can provide legal contract tracing, among many other things. Fourth, we have Polkadot, symbolized by DOT. Polkadot in itself is a very unique proof of stake currency, which is aimed at delivering interoperability among many blockchains. Where Polkadot differs from Ethereum is that rather than just creating decentralized applications on it, developers have the option of creating their own blockchains while using the security that Polkadot's chain already has. Ethereum does allow people to make smaller projects, smaller contracts, and contracts for their personal use on a smaller scale, but it does not provide the same level of safety and security that it provides to more larger scale and more mass scale projects and blockchain networks. Therefore, Polkadot manages to supersede Ethereum in this matter. This concept in Polkadot is known as shared security. Due to lack of time, I cannot cover all the alternate currencies that have come up with many unique and creative purposes, but I have listed them here. So in case anyone wants to give them a read, you can always Google and find them. So we have Bitcoin Cash by the name of BCH. We have Stellar symbolized by XLM. We have Chainlink, Binance Coin symbolized by BNB. We have Tether USDT, and we have Monero XMR. Now we come to the underdog. I personally feel that any conversation about cryptocurrency or Bitcoin in general is incomplete without mentioning this infamous cryptocurrency. Dogecoin is an open source cryptocurrency that started in 2013 by Jackson Farmer and Billy Marcus. Most of you must be knowing that it originally started off as a joke based or a meme based currency featuring a Shiba Inu, a Japanese breed of dog, as its official mascot. It is also based on Litecoin and has the same technology behind its proof of work. And again, it is surprisingly more efficient than Bitcoin, even though it was created just as a joke. But today, Dogecoin is not a joke. Having exploded in value and gained more than 5,000% in 2021, people like Elon Musk and organizations like Tesla have been major endorsers and people responsible for boosting Dogecoin. In fact, Elon Musk called Dogecoin his favorite cryptocurrency, and he also called it the people's crypto. Here you can see some very new tweets, very recent tweets by Elon Musk showing his support for Dogecoin. There's no need to be a giga chat to own. There's no highs, no lows, only Doge. Dogecoin is the people's crypto. We have Elon Musk endorsing his own meme. And we have this symbol representing the statement that Elon does plan to plant a physical Dogecoin on the moon, which I guess we are all looking forward to. So, with this, we come to the end of our session, and I really hope you did enjoy it. Now, the floor is open for any questions that you may have regarding what we covered.